it's been a kind of a consistent trend of what he's been saying as Ireland manager. Like from the very off, he said he felt the players were struggling with confidence. For some, the jersey's too heavy. November, after the England 5-0, he just said it was a psychological collapse, which makes and I like it's interesting that he thinks that that may be the problem. What I'm kind of shocked at is I think it's an open question and it's a fair question to ask. Are they doing enough to remedy what may be a problem there? What I find absolutely mad about this, it's kind of gone unremarked upon, is that they don't have a sports psychologist or a mental skills coach.
Yeah.
The reason they don't have one, it's not that Hal Grimson doesn't believe in and doesn't want one. He says they are important and he wants one, but the budget is such that he had to prioritize hiring a kind of a physical therapist, like a go-between for between the players on an individual level and the physio staff, with a view to the World Cup. He felt that was more important than a mental skills coach. The fact that he has to prioritize is maybe reflecting of where the FAI budgets are. But I like the fact that here's a manager who's repeatedly wondered whether his teams have psychological issues that are affecting results at this point, and they still don't have a sports psychologist or a mental skills coach. The idea of a sports psychologist, this is not revolutionary stuff. Shane, I'm sure you've run into plenty of GAA clubs who have a mental skills coach or sports psychologist. Listen to the acceptance speeches from the two All Ireland winning men's captains this year, both thanking Cathal Sheridan, their sports psychologist slash mental skills coach. So that the most high profile team of the country playing in games with the most amount of money on it, most amount of money riding on it, as opposed to any other team playing in any other competition, any sport in Ireland, don't have this. I think it's
But
absolutely mad.
this is cultural though, Gav. Like this is, have any of the Irish international teams ever had a mental skills coach?
David Ford did
Yeah.
something along those lines for Stephen Kenny. I think more of it was it was quite an ill-defined role publicly, at least. I know he kind of almost like a kind of a release valve for players to deal with, social media criticism and everything, and rightly so. Like it's so hard, and there's no, from my experience of talking to sports people, there's no point saying the manager or the coaching staff, we're here for you, because like players doing that when they go to these people, like they will feel like they're admitting a weakness. And if you want to be picked by the manager, they will rightly calculate maybe it's not best to be going to the manager expressing a weakness, regardless of what kind of environment that manager creates. Halgrimson has said this himself. You need someone that basically you can have confidential conversations that I'll never hear about. And
Oh,
that they
listen,
still haven't done it. I can't believe this.
You
this
hear like Stephen Bradley speaks about it all the time, doesn't he? About the
Yes.
difference at Shamrock Rovers, and just in terms of like helping players with their emotions in certain occasions and stuff. And I actually, I remember speaking to someone about this even when Stephen Kenny was the manager, and he would have been asking about that with Rovers and trying to maybe see is there something that could happen with Ireland. Now I don't know if it was a budget issue or if it was more so felt well how that operates. It's when you're embedded continually, that's maybe of more benefit. If it's just going to be sporadically in a camp, is there a benefit? But clearly there must be.
who
Other
have
international
who
teams,
who
I'm
have
guessing,
who
would
have
have it.
Rovers
And
got involved?
pardon?
Who have Rovers got involved? Did you say Rovers have one?
Mary, Doctor,
Mary Carroll, I think, is that it? Is that her
can't
name?
remember her surname at the moment, but like,
Interesting. I didn't
but
know
she's
that.
been involved for a few years there. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not, and you hear Stephen Bradley speaking about her on a continual basis in terms of a lot of this. Whenever it's about the success, it's like one of the first people he references will be her. And I know, like, but you would think as well, like players will deal with would have with these maybe at club level, so they'd be used to speaking. Like I know at Brentford, for example, and he's actually.
Sorry, David. Mary Larkin. Sorry, my
Mary
bad.
Larkin,
Mary
yeah,
Larkin,
I'm
my
a fan. I
apologies.
just didn't want to, yeah, fair play. Thanks, Kev. Um, but at Brentford, for example, I only kind of properly realised this just after Keith Andrews got the job, is that they have a psychologist who's basically embedded at the training ground every day. Do you know what I mean? Where who like say Nathan Collins would speak with, obviously Keith Andrews would speak with, now Queeveen Kelleher would speak with, and it's literally just so informal, just having chats and just discussing stuff. And like what Gav says, stuff that it's not, it's just part of the whole culture of what that club is, but it's not like you know something that the manager might be aware of. Do you know what I mean? In terms of, as you say, that whole thing of maybe player thinking of, I say X, Y, or Z, will a manager want to pick me? So true. Do you know what I mean? It's maybe it's a kind of a natural kind of caution, I suppose, that some people might have. Um,
Oh, listen, I actually wrote an article, I wrote a piece on this before, so I did. Like I never had a sports psychologist. I had one guy who came in and did one workshop, but I never had a sports psychologist properly at League of Ireland level for the sole reason, and this is a ridiculous, ridiculous reason, for the sole reason that any money spent on bringing in a sports psychologist was less money to spend on assembling a first team squad.
Yeah.
That's reality. That is reality. I'm now the manager of a club GA side. We have a sports psychologist. I didn't have one at League of Ireland, and I have one in Club GA because there's nothing else battling for those euros to be able to pay somebody to get involved. Now, for it to be a financial constraint at international level, where you're not battling it out to sign players, I really can't wrap my head around. I can't possibly. Like you look at again, like Gary Keegan is in that role for the Irish international rugby team. They think they had Caroline Curd involved, like literally, two of the best in the country. And listen, there's a whole other conversation around what qualifications they should or shouldn't have. I know qualified psychologists get really, really annoyed at performance consultants or whatever coming in who have little to no actual qualifications, but that's nearly a separate. But you need to have somebody in the role.
I think the closest that might have come was they had a video before the game, before that was shown before the Hungary game, the players, and it was like clip off stuff that would have been put together. So it was that O'Shea was talking about it. So what there was like little messages from the likes of Shay Given, it was Alan Kelly, Damien Duff, Robbie Keane, and a few others, So there was something
Great,
mental.
great to hear Alan Kelly and Damien Duff uniting a bit of motivational video, I have to say.
But yeah, I'm 99% sure he referenced Alan Kelly. We'll throw him in there. If he wasn't in it, he deserved to be in it, especially because he worked. But is this just to go on? Is this just something that we're latching onto as another reason, or is this something that is really important? Yeah, I should say, Gav, like with the amount of pressure that's there, we've already said it. Whether or not it's just a bundle of tickets, there is a want there from a public
Yeah.
desperate.
I just look at nearly every other sports team in the country believes in this, that role is important. You make a good caveat that it's obviously that the necessities of the role and demands of the role are very different when you're joining in camp for a week or 10 days at a time. Hal Grimson has himself acknowledged that. But here we have the manager wondering aloud whether there are still some lingering sports psychology issues with his players, and have the FAI been able to put him and the squad in the best place to address them? No, is frankly what I would say. The other thing to add, and I realize that there will be people who work at the FAI who will listen to this and will say, here's the media talking about how there's no budget to pay a sports psychologist when they're looking for my redundancy. And I respect that point of view. Like, I mean, money is too tight to mention, and people are going to have their lives upended who don't deserve that as a result. But I do think if we're discussing the senior international team, I think it's worth a mention because, as we know, Hal Grimson's salary is, according to Sunday Independent, around 650K a year. Like, that wasn't the salary that they initially budgeted for. Mark Cannon went back, having benchmarked that salary against the other national team managers at Euro 2024, and said we need more money to attract a candidate who might qualify for us for a tournament, a la whom they hope Hal Grimson to be. So they have found extra money because, this is the team that ultimately can make millions to drive the whole sport forward here. So in the past, they've calculated that this investment is worth it. I'm super surprised that Hal Grimson first spoke about sports psychologist in November last year. Here we are in the middle of the World Cup qualifying campaign, the decisive few weeks of his reign, and he's got nobody in.